You have to give Zack Snyder credit. He's accomplished something incredible as a filmmaker. He actually managed to make a Superman film worse than Superman 4: The Quest for Peace and a Batman film worse than Batman and Robin.
Ho 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 ho! Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jukebox Harry, and today we're going to be tackling the second episode in a trilogy of the worst Superman films by talking about the worst Superman and Batman film ever made. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is a 2016 superhero film and a follow-up to Zack Snyder's 2013 film Man of Steel, which itself was a highly mediocre film. It did try to do something different with the character than Superman Returns did, which I'll give it credit for, and its visual effects weren't unimpressive, but it was a very depressing, grim, monotonous disaster film with a Superman coat of paint slapped on it. Batman v Superman, or BVS for short, comes from a very difficult time in the DC Extended Universe. They were trying to establish themselves as a competing force against the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and in that exact same year, Captain America: Civil War came out, another film about superheroes fighting each other. While that film was incredible and groundbreaking, this one wasn't. The Marvel Cinematic Universe made the decision to actually ground itself as a franchise. It gave several different superheroes their own origin stories with little cameos and crossovers here and there until it decided to unite everyone in the film The Avengers, which back in its day was a groundbreaking movie. Whereas Batman v Superman, it only had one film preceding it, which was Man of Steel. It tried to make its characters clash against each other in a very forced story, and it didn't give audiences enough films to actually really care about the characters all that much. It tried to force you to care about the characters instead of allowing you to develop an organic connection to them. And as a result, it came out to be an absolute mess. When Captain America: Civil War came out, it had a whole series of origin stories, sequels, and crossovers all grounding itself beforehand, which is what made the battle between the characters so much more shocking. Batman v Superman just tried to dive in head first. When I first saw Batman v Superman, I was either bored, cringing, or mocking the film, so it was always destined to end up on Delightfully Devilish. But after rewatching Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, I was so certain that BVS could not be worse than that movie. It really shocked me just how bad this movie ended up being. Also, I'm going to be talking about not the theatrical version, which itself was a shit film, but the extended version, the Snydercut, which itself is even worse somehow. Even though we've seen Batman's origin story told so many times before and parodied in countless forms of media, Zack Snyder felt that we needed it in the DCEU, so Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice starts with a stylishly captured but wholly unnecessary montage which shows the death of Bruce Wayne's parents and him facing his fear of bats. Except that for some reason he literally gets lifted out of the well by the creatures.
In the dream, they took me to the light.
Yeah, get ready for a lot of weird dream or dream-like sequences in this movie. Then we meet Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, the cast member everyone was highly uncertain about. We see what was happening with him during the events of the climactic fight in Man of Steel as he visits Metropolis, where Wayne Enterprises has been operating. He drives through all the disaster brought on by the Kryptonian combat and goes head-on into the wreckage to find one of his employees, Wallace.
Like I can't move my legs. You're gonna be okay. You hear me?
He also saves the life of a young girl, whom he embraces as he stares up at Superman in anger. Then we cut to 18 months later in Africa, where Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen are on a journalistic mission.
Are you a terrorist, General?
Wow, that was your opening line? Not, hi, my name is Lois Lane, what's your name? Just, are you a terrorist? Turns out that Jimmy Olsen is working for the CIA. So Jimmy Olsen, the lovable photojournalist from the other Superman films, has now been made into a one-dimensional CIA agent who just gets killed for the sake of shock value. Wow, that's not something that has respect for its source material or its audience. Nobody ever mourns for Jimmy in the film. After the CIA willingly lets him die, they reveal themselves and wipe out the insurgent forces. They try to blow up the terrorist headquarters, but it doesn't go to plan.
Thing's been hit.
By what?
Oh yeah, I added that theme song myself. I felt like it'd be nice to give the film some feeling, but Zack Snyder very clearly disagreed with me.
Gotta go fast!
This entire scene is an attempt to explore the role played by Superman if he was in the war on terrorism.
The government attacked. No mercy in the villages. My parents tried to run.
The world has been so caught up with what Superman can do that no one has asked what he should do.
This is not how people talk. We don't talk like we're in movie trailers.
Let the record show that this committee holds him responsible.
He'll never answer to you. He answers to no one. Not even, I think, to God.
As far as I know, most religions believe that humans were created in the image of God, so extraterrestrial life forms would actually disprove his existence because they wouldn't have been created in his image. You know, how are we still believing in God in the universe of this film? So by that rationale, of course Superman doesn't answer to God because he disproves the existence of God in the first place. Meanwhile, something is happening in Gotham City where a bunch of bats are flying off. I wonder why. No, literally, I wonder why. Did Batman just bring a cage of bats to release like doves at a wedding when he stops criminals? Rather than actually showing us Batman kicking ass, it all occurs off screen. The police find an attempt to shoot at Batman, no doubt because he's black, but it's practically impossible to make sense of what's actually going on in this scene due to the poor choice of lighting and color scheme, as well as the quick editing.
He branded him.
Batman is a cattle farmer in this film now.
I didn't kill those men if that's what they think, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying I want to understand what happened. I just don't know if it's possible.
Well, first of all, through God, all things are possible, so jot that down.
Halfway through trying to have a pretentious conversation, Clark Kent just jumps in a bathtub fully dressed. Is this meant to symbolize his passion? The fact that he loves Lois so much that he's willing to get his clothes wet? This just feels like an inconvenience in all honesty.
We're criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals. Nothing's changed.
Oh, yes it has, sir. Everything's changed.
Yeah, they have changed into this, and I don't like it.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
But I do like the casting of Jeremy Irons as Alfred Pennyworth. He's a nice touch. And here is Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg.
No, Dad started saying that he named the company after his kid at investor pitches. Rich old ladies. They thought it was very cute, you know. Write checks for Lex.
When they first announced that Jesse Eisenberg had been cast as Lex Luthor, I thought, you know what, this could be interesting. It could be a different take on the character.
You know, Dad was born in East Germany. He grew up eating stale crackers. And every other Saturday, he had to march in a parade and wave flowers at tyrants.
Then I got wind of his performance, and it is one of the absolute low points in the film, which is really saying something. Now, Jesse Eisenberg made the decision to try to get away from the portrayals of Gene Hackman and Kevin Spacey playing the roles of Lex Luthor, which I respect. He wanted to do something different. It just should not have been this. His portrayal of Lex Luthor is a strange combination between Heath Ledger's Joker and Woody Allen.
What does a rock have to do with Homeland Security?
Homeland Security? No, ma'am. Planetary security.
The first time I watched Batman v Superman, I spent the majority of the film thinking that he wasn't even actually Lex Luthor, since this incarnation of the character is Alexander Luthor Jr., who is actually a different character in the DC Comics entirely. Luthor reveals that he has uncovered the substance of kryptonite, which causes cell degradation of Kryptonian beings.
And why would we want to weaponize this material?
As a deterrent? A silver bullet to keep in reserve to use against the Kryptonians, so the day does not come, madame, when your children are waving daisies at a reviewing stand.
In retrospect, this honestly could have been an interesting character when you consider that young entitled white men are a pretty destructive force in America. I mean, just look at Brock Turner, Kyle Rittenhouse, or the perpetrators of basically every single school shooting in the past 25 years. Always young, angry white men. But this film doesn't do anything with it. They don't make the character overly angsty like Kylo Ren from the Star Wars sequels, but it feels too much like we're just watching Jesse Eisenberg play Mark Zuckerberg from The Social Network all over again. It's hard to take the character seriously as a villain. Even when Lex Luthor gets granted access to the crashed Kryptonian ship in the next scene, just look at those shoes. Seriously, no sophisticated mad genius would ever be caught dead wearing what looks like tennis shoes. In a pretentiously dramatic slow-motion scene, Luthor also accesses the body of Zod and takes a sample of his DNA. And Wheelchair Wallace from earlier decides to spray paint the words "False God" over the Superman statue. This film repeatedly just pounds you over the head with the idea that people have a god complex about Superman, but it never actually develops this theme. They talk about it, but they never actually talk about it to a substantial degree. And despite all the talking, there is very little walking in this movie. We're 36 minutes into the film at this point, by the way, and this is literally all that's happened so far. The pacing in the film is glacial, and the soap opera melodrama doesn't validate it, but don't worry, it gets worse.
This bat vigilante has been consistently targeting the port and the adjacent projects and tenements, and as far as I can tell, the cops are actually helping him.
Plot of this movie. Batman is a vigilante who doesn't approve of Superman. Superman is a vigilante who doesn't approve of Batman. Let's talk about this for 3 hours.
Did you file the football yet?
Why aren't we covering this?
Here's a better question. Why don't you have any fucking personality? Lois also reveals a discovery about a bullet she found at the scene of the terrorist attack.
Recovered from the scene of the firefight in the desert. Not sold anywhere commercially in the world, even black market.
So?
So who gave prototype military rounds to Tuareg fighters in the Sahara?
You're the reporter, tell me.
I think that the US government is arming the rebels while claiming to support the elected government.
The ask, Lois.
Okay, stop right there. You know what? This film does have a lot of ambition, I'll give it that. It tries to tackle real-world politics, the religious symbolism of superheroes, the impacts of Western superheroes on international relations, etc. The problem is that this film spends so much time getting caught up in its tenuous political conversations and self-indulgent metaphoricals that it forgets to have any kind of an actual moving story. Now, if you've ever seen the 007 film Spectre, the villain in that, Blomfeld, he spends so much of the film just talking himself up, but very little time actually doing anything. Now, imagine a film where literally every single character is Blomfeld, and yet not portrayed nearly as well as Christoph Waltz actually did because he's a brilliant actor, and you have Batman v Superman.
Maybe one day Dad'll come back if I just keep everything the same. That is silly.
Uh-oh! Someone has some daddy issues.
I'm blocking the import license for your mineral.
Ah, that's a shame.
Can I call you Jew?
You can call me whatever you like.
Can I call you a limo and have it take us to the set of a better movie?
Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea.
See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I came to this movie to watch Batman fight Superman, not to watch Mrs. Incredible talk about a bucket of urine.
That should be upside down. Now, we know better now, don't we? The devils don't come from hell beneath us, no. No, they come from the sky.
We get it. Superman is evil, obvious 9/11 reference. Can we just fucking move on? Bruce Wayne goes to visit the graves of his family because Zack Snyder confuses nicely filmed slow-motion footage for actual storytelling for the majority of this movie.
So it was a dream!
Then he talks about discovering that a Russian gangster has been in contact with Lex Luthor.
Bruce Wayne can't break into Lex Luthor's house.
Bruce Wayne won't have to. He's been invited.
Then there's a shot where he literally just stands and stares at the Batman suit for a few seconds. What was the actual purpose of this shot? Was it meant to establish the idea that Bruce Wayne could possibly beat Batman?
That millionaire playboy, he's too busy socializing at cocktail parties and managing the affairs of the Wayne Foundation.
He also has a Robin costume that reads "The joke's on you, Batman," which is a reference to the second Robin who was tortured to death by the Joker. This thing just gets popped in there as a little Easter egg and has no relevance or bearing on the story whatsoever.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Philanthropist, bibliophile, true friend of the Library of Metropolis.
Oh, friend! Oh, new friend! Oh, friend! Please be my friend! Oh, friend! Oh, friend!
Fuck you.
Lex Luthor gets up to give a speech full of self-indulgent, nonsensical ramblings while Bruce Wayne goes around to investigate and siphon the information he can get off Lex Luthor's computer.
And knowledge is power. And I am... no, what am I? What was I saying? The bittersweet pain among men is having knowledge with no power, because that is paradoxical, and, thank you for coming.
He is so eccentric.
Here's the main problem with Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor. There is a fine difference between mad genius, which is what Lex Luthor is, and just plain mad, which is what Jesse Eisenberg is.
What's your position on the Bat Vigilante in Gotham? Civil liberties are being trampled on in your city. Good people living in fear.
The Daily Planet criticizing those who think they're above the law is a little hypocritical, wouldn't you say? Considering every time your hero saves a cat out of a tree, you read a puff-piece editorial about an alien who, if he wanted to, could burn the whole place down.
This scene perfectly sums up the entire movie. Here we have Batman and Superman talking to each other about conflicting political ideologies, but not actually fighting. Okay? That's what this film is. This is a film where you will most likely either feel nothing because you're numb to the sheer monotony of the feature, or you'll be overwhelmed with frustration at the incompetence of any filmmaker who would take two iconic comic book characters and make them do this.
Hi, hello, Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
Don't worry, there's no sign of that actually happening in a film called Batman v Superman. Superman sees on the news that a girl has been trapped in a house fire, so the party scene is cut short after achieving nothing as he goes off to rescue her. Of course, all we get is a slow motion shot of him landing after the action has already happened. Then we have a bunch of talk show hosts trying to represent both sides of the argument while we see him rescuing a crew from a doomed space mission. More nice imagery, more boring conversation, still no excitement. Then Superman calls his mother.
Hi.
How come Dad never left Kansas?
How come your movie is more boring than Superman Returns? In Clark Kent's eyes, Batman is a controversial figure because by branding the criminals he captures, that somehow becomes a death sentence? I don't get it. It isn't exactly clear to me why that brand is a death sentence, nor is it clear to me why he would actually have that brand when people could easily copy that and then cast a death sentence on anyone they wanted. But Clark Kent obsessively investigates it, despite his boss telling him otherwise.
Nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman.
I did, until this film made me wait an hour for nothing to happen, and then they started forcing all these meta lines into the script, which are quite literally just insulting to the audience who is still waiting for Batman to fight Superman.
Who the hell are you?
Just a man.
Yeah? Well, what the fuck do you want?
To flex to a guy in a wheelchair that I can walk. Yeah, I guess he really is a bad guy.
Hey, look at me. I'm walking. Oh, I'm a remarkable man.
To help you stand for something.
I get it.
Then we're at yet another cocktail party because the first one wasn't boring enough. But Wonder Woman is at this one, believe it or not. You might have a hard time believing it because actress Gal Gadot doesn't have the right physique for the role, or simply because she is completely free of any charisma.
Oh, I don't think you've ever known a woman like
In retrospect, the existence of Wonder Woman kind of blunts some of the narrative in the story. We later learn that she's been around since World War I, and apparently she fights in the Cold War in the currently unreleased Wonder Woman 1984. But theoretically, the world would have to have known about the existence of Wonder Woman. So why Superman's existence is stirring up such a conversation that the existence of Wonder Woman just hasn't been doing really goes beyond me. But I think the main problem is simply the fact that Zack Snyder forgot to actually include any subtle references to Wonder Woman in Man of Steel. I mean, even Iron Man had small references to Captain America. Then we're suddenly in a Mad Max type setting, which is later revealed to be a dream sequence. Batman finds himself at war with a bunch of men in uniforms with the Superman logo. Nothing about this scene makes sense, it has no reason to be here, and it makes me think that Zack Snyder just added it because he wanted to do a Mad Max style Batman scene which he could organically work into the narrative. And if it just turns out to be a dream, then you can be as pretentious and incongruent as you want. But to its credit, at least it's an exciting one-take action scene. This is the first real action scene in the last 50 minutes, and it has no relation to the plot aside from emphasizing Bruce Wayne's ridiculous fears about the world that Superman is leading us to. But even though it's a dream sequence, it's also a betrayal to the Batman character because he never uses guns in the comics since that was the object that killed his parents. Sure, you can argue that this is a vision of the future where things have become so dark and violent that Batman has actually had to go back to resorting to using guns, but still, that's a bit much. The fact that the most entertaining moment in the film so far is the one that has nothing to do with the story says everything about how poor the writing is. Eventually he gets knocked out, which realistically should wake him up. Seriously, have you ever had a dream where you've been like knocked out or killed and then you've kept dreaming? No, you wake the fuck up. Still, in the dream, Batman wakes up to find Superman as a complete force of evil.
She was my world, and you took her from me.
What? We never get an explanation to any of this, but by now you should be used to that. Zack Snyder likes to titillate, but he does not like to follow up. Batman wakes up to a very confusing vision.
Lois Lane! She's the key! If I knew soon! You're right about him! You've always been right about him! What?
Then apparently that was all a dream too, even though the papers are flying everywhere. Watching this in the cinemas, neither me nor my other friends knew what the fuck was going on in this scene. We actually had to look it up afterwards to establish that apparently that was the Flash coming back in time to warn him about something. I should not have had to look that up. That should make some kind of sense, but it doesn't. It's irrelevant. And you know what? It never even gets explained in the film or even in the Justice League. So I don't know what the fuck Snyder was going for. Now, apparently it might have some significance in his cut of the film, but still...
It is one fuck of a bummer to look at, I can tell you that.
And the fact that he did it with a dream within a dream sequence, you know what? Just because Christopher Nolan goes from directing a Batman film to directing Inception, it doesn't mean that you can, Snyder, okay? The saddest thing, however, is that as ridiculous and bad as this scene is, this isn't even Zack Snyder at his worst.
Oh no, we're not done yet.
We are not even halfway through the film at this point, and I have to say, reviewing this movie just completely fucking exhausts me. Seriously, I thought I had to struggle to get through my review of Independence Day Resurgence, but that is nothing compared to this film. Haha, get it? Because Justice League? By hacking Luthor's database, Bruce Wayne uncovers a ship which is carrying a large deposit of kryptonite which he wants.
You're gonna go to war.
At this point, I really doubt it. I've given up hope that anyone is going to go to war with anyone in this movie. Surprisingly, we actually get another action scene next. Batman intercepts the ship so he can claim the kryptonite for himself, but unfortunately, the entire scene is a mix of poor lighting and an almost complete absence of any color. As much as Zack Snyder does know imagery, Batman v Superman is probably the worst example of his vision, because it is too often difficult to actually see what the fuck is going on. And even when you can see it, there is nothing to get you involved. Eventually, he gets stopped by Superman, and the two finally come face to face.
The bat is dead. Bury it. Consider this mercy.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir!
Tell me. Do you bleed?
Yeah, Superman flies away from that pretentious dialogue in disgust, and it's probably the one good thing he has done so far.
You will.
But him flying away from the scene also means that he doesn't actually fight Batman, of course. You know, this is the second time Ben Affleck has starred in a critically panned 3-hour film where the title of the film is almost irrelevant after Pearl Harbor, which oddly enough was also nominated for the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Picture and Worst Actor for Ben Affleck. Except that in Batman v Superman, he definitely did not deserve that nomination. He was one of the few highlights of this movie. In Pearl Harbor, you had to wait a total of 80 minutes before any real action happened, and before Pearl Harbor actually got bombed, it was the longest wait. But at the same time, there was so much pretentious romantic drama and shitty dialogue like this up until then.
Ma'am, please, don't take my wings.
There was something for audiences to laugh at. In Batman v Superman, there is nothing to laugh at. There is nothing to feel. It's a lot of pretentious dialogue with no emotion to it, of any kind. And apparently, none of the criminals noticed the very obvious tracker which Bruce Wayne has left on the container carrying the kryptonite.
How do we determine what's good? In a democracy, good is a conversation, not a unilateral decision.
In any political climate whatsoever, good is when someone delivers on their promises. This film promises Batman is going to fight Superman, and yet it does not deliver on that, okay? Good definition, not this fucking movie.
Be their hero, Clark. Be their monument, be their angel. Be anything they need you to be. Or be none of it.
Great advice, Mom. Be one of two things which are complete polar opposites. Lois Lane discovers that the bullet was made by LexCorp and that apparently the situation in the desert earlier was a setup designed to frame Superman.
Wow. You just wrinkled my brain, man.
It is never given a clear explanation as to what the motivations of this ambush were, but maybe if you're deep enough in Zack Snyder's asshole, it'll make sense. Bruce Wayne also keeps getting some angry checks, which I don't understand either, but frankly I don't care at this point. Superman is brought before a widely publicized congressional hearing. Midway through her speech, Elastigirl gets distracted by a jar of what may or may not be urine. I know this is a reference to that shitty metaphor in the conversation they had earlier, and if I thought long and hard on this, I could probably understand a fraction of what the symbolism of it here is, but no. No, I have exhausted my brain trying to think of so many things in this movie, trying to understand so much, and trying to understand, above all, why anyone would make a film like this. I have no energy left to understand why there is a jar of piss or tea sitting on the counter, and I don't care. Fuck you, Zack Snyder. You made me stop thinking.
Thinking sucks.
Wallace's LexCorp wheelchair explodes, killing everyone. And this marks a very notable point in the film. We are now 91 minutes into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. That is the entire length of Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, which is a far superior film even though it is considered one of the worst movies ever made. Quite frankly, you could watch that movie twice in the time it takes you to watch the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and you would have a way better time. Watching a shitty movie back to back twice is better than watching this shitty movie in its whole once. Batman steals the kryptonite from Lex Luthor and has a badass workout montage, then sees that Lex Luthor has uncovered the real identity of Wonder Woman. Again, if there is historical evidence that Wonder Woman exists, why are we surprised that superheroes exist? Superman talks about how he couldn't actually see the explosive as everyone wonders if he was involved. Turns out it's because of the chair, which was lined with lead. Clark Kent somehow has a vision of his dad who died in the last film, and this isn't actually a dream. So what it's doing in this film...
You know you can't win this. It's suicide.
Suicide is badass.
Both Lois and Martha get kidnapped by Luthor. He pushes Lois off the edge of the building to lure Superman out.
Boy, do we have problems up here.
That's one line of dialogue that actually makes sense in this movie.
Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
You think I'll fight him for you?
Yes I do. I think you will fight for that special lady in your life.
She's safe on the ground.
I am not talking about Lois. No. Every boy's special lady is his mother.
Woody Allen meets Heath Ledger's Joker, meets Mark Zuckerberg, meets Norman Bates from Psycho. By holding Martha hostage, Luthor blackmails Superman into fighting Batman to the death. The film crosses the 2-hour mark as Wonder Woman receives an email from Bruce Wayne confirming that he knows who she is, as well as revealing the existence of the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. And Superman finally meets with Batman preparing to battle. Except that we could have finished watching Superman 3 at this point. You know, that terrible Richard Pryor comedy. Jesus Christ, the fact that Batman v Superman is making me miss that movie. Wow. Superman tries to explain himself, but Batman attacks, first with sonic waves which do nothing, and then with bullets that do nothing. The fight finally kicks off 124 minutes into the film.
It's been 84 years.
Batman attacks Superman with a kryptonite gas grenade which weakens him to the point of human strength.
That's fear.
No, it's kryptonite gas. Stop trying to make things deep when they very obviously are not. The two have some hand-to-hand combat which is decent, but all too brief. And once they fall into the building, that's where things go downhill. After waiting the entire film's worth of length, Batman v Superman delivers on the promise of its title by having a fight scene which resembles a child with a Batman and Superman action figure that they just keep bashing together. We also get the Arthur meme.
It's not my fault.
After hitting him with another kryptonite grenade, Batman busts a bathroom sink over Superman's head, throws him to the ground, and then swings him around like Superman swung around a bag of nuclear missiles in Superman 4. And that right there is the end of the fight. Yep, the big fight that was promised us in the title of the film that we waited 124 minutes for, it lasted a total of 6 minutes and 52 seconds, including all the fightless dramatic pauses in between. Fuck you, Snyder. BVS finally peaks in sheer pretentiousness when Batman pulls a kryptonite spear to Superman and prepares to kill him, leading us to the famous words.
You're letting him kill Martha.
What does that mean?
Save Martha. Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name.
Because of the fact that the two have mothers with the same name, this literally fixes everything.
Oh, how convenient.
Batman flies his Batplane over to the hideout where Martha is being kept and incapacitates everyone in a series of shaky cam shots which suffer from quick cuts and, you guessed it, more bad lighting. Even though there are some decent moments in this fight, there is nothing to feel. If this scene happened much earlier in the film, then the action quantity would have been more efficiently spread out, and if this didn't come right after a thoroughly disappointing fight that was overly hyped for 2 long hours, then maybe I'd have some better words to say.
But that's not the way it happened.
He also somehow manages to protect Martha from an explosion, somehow completely unscathed.
I'm a friend of your son's.
Is he though? Oh yeah, Lex Luthor also reroutes the city's power to turn General Zod's corpse into this film's version of Nuclear Man.
You're Doomsday. That's the ugliest motherfucker I ever seen.
I'm gonna kick your fucking ass! Yeah, why don't you try it, asshole? Get your ass up here and kick my ass! Shut the fuck up, you stupid bitch! Get the fuck back to the There's a classy neighborhood! People trying to sleep! God, shut the fuck up! Hey, I'm really sorry. Yeah, me too. He's worse than us. Yeah, she's our enemy now.
And then the film goes back to the disaster film roots of Man of Steel by having Superman fight Zod on steroids, with the two literally just knocking each other around all over again. Some aircraft come in and try to interrupt the beast, but he also apparently has the ability to generate giant surges of electromagnetic energy.
God have mercy on us all.
Again, 2 extraterrestrial incarnations are destroying the world around you. That doesn't line up with anything that was told in your fantasy books. Superman tries sending the creature into space, but the government nukes them both, knocking Doomsday back down to Earth and actually feeding his power. Batman uses his plane to lead Doomsday away, but gets shot down, and in comes another shameless plug for the DC Universe. I used to like this song, and then I made the mistake of making it the custom ringtone for my abusive ex-girlfriend, so it actually brings back a lot of bad memories. That being said though, I have very few good memories associated with Batman v Superman or Wonder Woman, so, you know, bad memories for bad movies. Everyone gets knocked around for a while until Superman grabs the kryptonite spear and impales Doomsday, then he himself gets impaled in the process, thus ending the battle after 16 minutes and 20 seconds, just less than 2.5 times the length of Batman's fight with Superman.
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
It's obvious from the get-go that Superman isn't really dead. You're not going to kill off one of the main characters in what is intended to be a huge franchise after you're literally 2 films in, but the film wants you to believe that he is. And that is emotionally manipulative, pathetic, obvious, and just shit storytelling. At the end of Avengers Endgame, spoiler alert, when Tony Stark actually sacrifices himself, it means something because he's appeared in 9 films before this. So we've had time to get emotionally attached to the character, and we also know at this point that he's not going to be randomly coming back from the dead at any point in the future. It means something. This film doesn't understand what that means. People moan about their dead martyr in silence for a while, and a random character we've never ever seen before just cameos for the sake of disappearing. If you're not familiar with the comics, this won't make sense, but if you've seen Justice League, then you know it's Steppenwolf. I should not have had to see Justice League to know who this is. We've had 3 hours of nothing but fucking nonsensical rambling this entire film. How about some of that rambling helps us actually characterize who this guy is? No, Snyder, that's where you're gonna draw the line? Okay. Lex Luthor gets arrested and has his head shaved. We linger with some more silent shots for a while.
The dead shall live. My slain shall rise again.
Yeah, we know. It's literally impossible not to see that coming. Batman visits Luthor in prison to brand him and tell him that he's being transferred to Arkham Asylum. While Luthor continues to ramble about not being fit to stand trial, he decides against branding him for some reason and then just disappears.
Ice cream man! Ice cream man!
And just as Lois Lane drops the dirt on Superman's grave, the film gives us an all too obvious reminder that Superman isn't really dead by literally copying the ending shot from X-Men The Last Stand. You know, it is one thing to make an awful comic book movie, it is another thing to plagiarize from another much maligned comic book movie, but Zack Snyder really just wants to fuck everything up. Whatever. Is Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice a good film? No. I genuinely had such a difficult time watching this movie to review it that I actually was able to watch 5 movies playing in the background in the time it took me to actually get through everything I had to say about Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. I sincerely hated the process of reviewing this movie. But I know that after this, I can review any movie in the world, because if I can do Batman v Superman, then I'm the real Superman here. I have never seen a comic book movie that I would give a full 0 stars to, and this film is no exception. With Ben Affleck portraying a surprisingly strong iteration of an older Bruce Wayne while also maintaining the darkness of Batman, and the fact that the film does have some decent production values, I can't give 0 stars to Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. But nonetheless, I personally think that Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is the single worst comic book film ever made in history. Zack Snyder thinks his movie is a brilliant commentary on politics, but it is 3 hours of people filibustering, talking in metaphors, and pointing the finger at the other person. If I wanted that, I could watch Scott Morrison argue with all of his detractors about how he's doing such a shit job. If I wanted to watch Batman fight Superman, I would watch a film called Batman v Superman. The screenplay to this movie is one of the most self-indulgent screenplays ever written. It's loaded with generic characters, all of who are one-dimensional, packed with a ridiculous number of subplots and hints towards the wider DC universe, none of which are developed, and the whole time it pretends to be some kind of intellectual political commentary. Even if this film was a smart commentary on politics, it would still be a terrible movie because it has no idea how to actually be a good time, which I know is a big thing to ask for from a superhero film, right? Yeah, you know, if you've seen Black Panther, that film has a lot of political undertones. There's a lot of characters who are fleshed out and a lot of contrasting political ideologies that the film likes to explore. But it also knows how to be a good time. It might come up a little bit short in terms of the quantity of action, but it's a fun movie. You can relate to the characters, you can be charmed by it, you can like what's going on, and you can think about the politics of African American and American identity while you're watching it. It knows what to do. Batman v Superman delivers none of the generic contracts of a comic book movie and just gets lost in incessant political rambling. It's monotonous, soulless, depressing, self-indulgent, slow, long, vain, and just not a fun experience in the slightest. Zack Snyder recently criticized a film critic on Twitter who pointed out that the trailer for his version of Justice League doesn't actually look like it's going to be good. He said that that guy only probably enjoys cartoonish, childish films and that he makes movies for adults. Let me tell you something, Zack Snyder. As an adult, let me say I speak for adults everywhere when I say that Batman v Superman is a self-indulgent piece of shit. I know I've said that many times, but it doesn't sound like people can say that enough because it just won't get through your fucking head. I have zero faith that Justice League is going to be good. I had some hopes and some optimism when I saw some theories about what could be explored in your film, but no. The best thing that ever happened to you working on Justice League was you stepping down from the job. It happened in tragic circumstances which are awful and I will not joke about in the slightest, but the fact is that Joss Whedon came in to polish the massive pile of shit that you had left. What's really sad about Batman v Superman is the fact that it has created a generation of people called Snyderbots. People who think that Batman v Superman is the greatest thing to have ever happened to the world, who think that Zack Snyder is a martyr and some kind of untapped genius. He's not, and his movie sucks. But honestly, Snyderbots really think that there is depth and significance in this movie where it fundamentally is not. They are the cinematic equivalent of COVID conspiracy theorists trying to make up all kinds of bullshit and ramble because they think it makes them seem smarter than everyone else. Realistically, it's just a sign of them being fundamentally ignorant on very deep levels. These Snyderbots think that the scene where Batman is distracted by someone saying the name of a woman who shares his mother's is a testament to the great depth of the characters. It's fucking not! They're two women who share the same names. If you have found depth and meaning there, then it's only stuff that you've created for yourself. I've even seen Snyderbots claim that the scene where the Flash travels back in time was something that Marvel would later plagiarize directly from Batman v Superman when they added time travel to Avengers Endgame. That is how low Snyderbots are willing to sink to invent ideas about this movie being deep and to claim that it's fundamentally so much smarter than Marvel. You know, a company that's been producing movies that are actually fun and entertaining and, oh get this, profitable. Yeah, this movie was not a profitable film, so that's funny. Enjoying Batman v Superman does not automatically make you a Snyderbot, but worshipping the ground he walks on when in actuality he's just a guy who made a bad film, yeah, that's a telltale sign. At the time of filming this video, I have seen every movie released in the DC Extended Universe so far, and it has not been a good experience for me. Man of Steel was grim and depressing. Wonder Woman was uninspired, had paper-thin characters and unimpressive visuals. Aquaman was bloated, convoluted, and overlong. Suicide Squad was a massive mess. Birds of Prey was a step up, but it still had a very generic story and a shitty screenplay. And Justice League, that had some fun moments, but that was a messy production. The only things I liked about it were Joss Whedon's touches that tried to salvage the film from the mess that Zack Snyder had left for him. And objectively, it was not a good film. Shazam, that was fucking wonderful, okay? That was the best superhero film of 2019 in my opinion. Yes, even better than Avengers Endgame, which I know is a big call. But it was fun. It was poignant but not too dramatic. It was hilarious, and it was genuinely an enjoyable experience. That is everything that Batman v Superman does not stand for being. Ironically, outside of the DC Extended Universe, I have enjoyed every other film that Zack Snyder has directed. Dawn of the Dead was a solid horror film, which was a way better remake than remakes could ever dream of typically being. Watchmen was a very solid adaptation of one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written, comic book or otherwise. 300 was a visceral visual experience with amazing action scenes and a lot of quotable dialogue. Even Sucker Punch, which was fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways, had a lot of entertaining action scenes, and I'm going to be talking about that movie one day. But when it comes to the DC Universe, Zack Snyder really buried it so fucking deep in the ground and just has no idea what he's doing. As far as the acting goes in the film, Batman is played well, but Henry Cavill is the worst Superman I have ever seen in a live-action movie. I've enjoyed his performances in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Mission Impossible Fallout, but he has no character or soul whatsoever portraying Superman. And similarly, Gal Gadot has no sense of personality or emotional strength, so she feels like a model cosplaying as Wonder Woman more than an actual Amazonian warrior. Lois Lane pretends to be a brave journalist in the film, but everything about her is focused on being a plot device to motivate Superman by having her just keep rescuing her. It's pretty pathetic, and an actress of Amy Adams' talents deserves way better. And then there's Jesse Eisenberg. God, what a mess. Jesse Eisenberg has actually said that he hasn't seen Batman v Superman because he doesn't enjoy watching himself in films. I would not blame him for not wanting to watch this movie. But he should, because he needs to learn that he should never play a role like this ever again. Interestingly enough, the studio actually originally wanted Tom Hanks to play the role of Lex Luthor. Imagine how good that would have been. As a final note, I want to reiterate my issue that someone actually extended this movie from its theatrical cut. Zack Snyder unleashed a steaming pile of shit with this movie, and then decided, yeah, let's add more shit to it. Let's make it a bigger pile of shit.
That is one big pile of shit.
And what little action is actually given in this movie proves far from impressive. Even if this film did have amazing action scenes, which it definitely did not, they would be completely blunted by the excess of one-note talking that weighs down the film. But it's not even that good. There's a few decent moments of Batman kicking ass, but they're either completely irrelevant or burdened by shaky cam and quick cuts. All of Superman scenes prove to be just footage from a disaster movie, which of course means that they have to be over-reliant on CGI, which isn't even groundbreaking. And all of the action in the film is burdened by Snyder's choice of color scheme. It isn't just depressing, it's genuinely hard to make out most of the time just because of the shit lighting. Even if the final action scene has its moments, it's pretty debilitated by the lackluster story that precedes it. There is no conclusion good enough to salvage the corner that Snyder has backed his characters into with this movie. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice gets 1 Kryptonian abortion out of 10. It is a long, slow, repetitive, boring, soulless, self-indulgent, awful 3-hour experience of political rambling, which is simply one of the worst experiences I've ever had watching this movie. And despite the fact that Ben Affleck is a pretty solid Batman and some of the production values are okay, it doesn't take away from the fact that this is the single worst cinematic comic book adaptation ever made. Period. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If there are any movies you want to see me discuss on this show, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, I've been your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.
Martha!